Hello and welcome to Mallala. Shell Oils is proud to bring you round 5 of the Australian Road Racing Championships. We've got the 125s, the 250s, the 600 Supersports, the Superbikes and the Sidecars. Plenty of action, 2.6 kilometres around the circuit here at Mallala. Let's take a look. This is definitely a circuit for the late breakers as they head either into S's or into hairpin corners. The circuit's fairly flat, but it is a requirement that you've got your bike set up under brakes and can then turn it into the corners. With me in commentary, Ken Wooten from Australian Motorcycle News. Welcome, Ken.
Greg, all the riders agreeing exactly with your comments, echoing those thoughts. A very difficult track to put a smooth lap together on, whether it be a superbike or a 250 production machine.
Well, the 250 production machine's on the grid now, and the man on pole position, Adam Ferguson, has nailed 5 out of 5 so far in the series. He's only got Phillip Island to go. We'll have to see whether he can make it 6 out of 6. Beside him, Kevin Curtin, McAteer and Kinner. They will round out the front row. Now, the interesting point about Mallala is just how close the first set of S's are to the start line. 250 production bikes, maybe we'll get up into third gear, and then it will be on for young and old. Big field, and you can see they're just about in the starter's hand now. So, really, pole position is on the outside of the circuit. If you get a clean start, you're away, and you'll be able to do something with it as the field stream down into the first corner. Who will it be? Kevin Curtin, bike 3's fired off the line, so he has just gotten the break that he needs right at the moment. Kevin Curtin on screen, plenty of pressure in behind him. Kinner, McAteer, Ferguson up there as well.
All these riders coming from a dirt track background. Kevin Curtin, an ex-flat track champion. Adam Ferguson honing his skills in the dirt. Chris McAteer, also a motocrosser, as is Michael Kinner in second place on bike 69. These 250 production machines, very difficult to get a smooth lap around this circuit.
Well, I suppose it's very much a matter of just try and balance the machine. Everybody has to think about the tyres, the suspension. 250 production bikes, well, are production bikes, but there are a few things you can do to change them. So there's some personal preferences out there. Gee, I'll tell you what, Kevin Curtin looks strong on the machine, and he's very experienced at setting up the bike, and is pretty cool, calm and collected around the pits.
A lot of old heads on young shoulders here, Greg. These guys, a lot of them haven't been racing for very long, but learning very rapidly, a very steep learning curve. It's the class that's given birth to the Anthony Goberts, the Troy Courses, the Matthew Milladens, all these guys out there, a lot of them in their early 20s, late teens, hoping to follow in the footsteps of those others that have now gone on to the World Championship stage.
Well, no doubt whatsoever that most of these competitors have eyes for bigger and better things in their racing career. Fortunately, this class allows them to get the experience without having to spend mega dollars and try and bankroll their way and fund their way forward. One of the real problems here, have a look at this. Here's Ferguson up the inside. So Ferguson now on the charge. Now, he had the psychological advantage of pole position. So really you would expect that he could go on with it. But it's Kevin Curtin has simply pulled the pin and running away with it at the moment. You know, 250 production racing is brilliant. It doesn't matter whether the front of the field, the middle of the field, the rear of the field, there's always action. There's always some kind of a battle going on. Similar to the one we're watching here right at the front. Now, at the back of this group, Carl Muggeridge, bike 12, he's also been up the front in many of the races so far this season, so we would expect to see him getting up there and mixing it pretty swiftly. One of the problems with this circuit, though, has to be trying to set the bike up. For one, the high-speed corner on the far side of the circuit, which is taken flat in top, versus the tight S's and the hairpins. Curtin, McAteer and Ferguson just settling themselves in. And I think right at the moment, McAteer looks, well, in control. He's certainly improved his racing over the last couple of months and is coming on in leaps and bounds.
He's the big charger in the pack, Greg. Chris McAteer, current lap record holder at Phillip Island. He set that time at the World Superbikes, an absolutely amazing time. He's now able to play with, I guess, what we'd say are the big boys in the class. Kevin Curtin out in front. It's his 3rd season in the class. Didn't do a full year back in 1993. He's running on Bridgestone tyres on his Suzuki, sponsored by Graham Boyd Motorcycles. Chris McAteer, he's in his 3rd season in the class, even though he's only in his early 20s. He's running on Dunlops. The bikes, Suzuki RGV 250s that you can buy for about $9,500. The bikes are evenly matched. Tyre choice doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. It comes down to racecraft.
The one thing I would say that right at the moment, Suzuki, the only machine to be on, they're all Suzukis out there. And we've seen Kawasaki's and Hondas and Yamaha's up in the 250 production class. It seems to be which factory really wants to pull the pin and come up with the right kind of bike for the season. most of the competitors updating every year and putting the dollars up for a new machine. But right now, Kevin Curtin looks super strong out in front. He's a very angular rider. He really does get off the side of the motorcycle. And when you consider, let's have a look at this in replay. Let's just have a look at the style of this man. On the Shell replay, it's very easy to see how quickly he thinks about the fact that he's got to get his knee up and over that ripple strip.
What that replay showed, of course, was the front suspension working overtime, and that's one of the few things that these riders are able to fine-tune. They can fiddle with the weight of the oil, they can fiddle with the settings on the front suspension. They can't actually replace it, and it makes for very tactical racing, because what you were saying before, sometimes they can only get the bike suited for one part of the circuit, and it's a trade-off with others. What they do have to do is keep the cornering speed up, because they don't have a lot of horsepower to get out of the turns.
Right now we're watching a battle for a little further afield, but this one is no less interesting. That is Muggeridge, bike 12, just trying to make up some ground after having run wide a couple of corners ago. In fact, very wide. I thought he was going to run off the circuit, but managed to hang on to it. You know, one of the great parts about the 250 production class is you can be fairly sure that it comes down to rider skill. But given the fact that the bikes are so close in performance, it really does come down to how you've set it up. So if you're being beaten by a fair few seconds out on the track, really you've just got to concentrate on your own riding. Now that's where the guys at the front really do have it over the rest of the field. They're very experienced, as Ken's been saying. Some of them have been in the field for 3 years racing in this particular class. That's an enormous amount of experience on how to wring the last ounce of performance from the motorcycle.
What tends to be the record of these guys is they come from a dirt racing background as a teenager. They step into road racing in what we call, I guess, the cheap entry-level classes. Chris McAteer, what a move up under brakes on Kevin Curtin. That takes a lot of planning.
Certainly does. Here it is on the replay. Now look at the bike moving around, the front starting to lock up and then just on the verge of actually sliding away. At that point, Kevin Curtin did not have a corner to turn into, and so he simply had to let it go. There was nothing he could do about it.
It's what we were saying about experience 12 months back. There's no way McAteer would have been able to attempt that move and pull it off, but he's learnt in his year of road racing in this particular class how to do that, how to do it safely. As Curtin tries to come back up the inside, can't do it, and McAteer's riding like a man possessed. He hasn't ridden this well at a Shell round for a long time, Greg.
This is a big ride from him. Here comes Curtin up the inside. These two prepared to argue the whole way. Here comes Ferguson into the equation as well. 3 of them now, all heading for the last lap. Ferguson up the inside, so Ferguson moves himself up into second place. McAteer's gone from first back to third in a couple of corners. But here we go on the replay one more time. And you can see here that Curtin's so determined to get up the inside of McAteer, is taking absolutely no prisoners on this one. Ferguson comes up into the play as well and actually got the advantage. Ferguson now up the inside of Curtin. So Adam Ferguson has come from about 4th, further back in the field, really has worked on this, settled himself into it, has gotten some smooth laps out of the motorcycle when it counts. So the battle continues for the lead. Here comes Kevin Curtin on a charge up the inside on Ferguson, does it and grabs the lead. Wow, this 250 production action all the way to the flag.
Chris McAteer right up out of the seat with a near high side, back tyre broke loose, still got past Adam Ferguson as they head for the line. That's amazing. Ferguson's gone from 1st to 3rd in 3 corners.
Amazing. Typical 250 production racing, close and fast. Curtin, McAteer and Ferguson. Race 1, round 5, here at Mallala. Well, the point score chase continues. Curtin on screen looks pretty pleased about it, and so he should be. He's well and truly clear point score-wise, 155 ahead of Ferguson on 132, Brent Issel on 111, and Carl Muggeridge on 102 ahead of McAteer and Todd Issel. Well, this is a replay of the action. We've got the 250 Grand Prix bikes coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. The 250 Grand Prix machines getting set for a start. Ken Wooten, this is the purest class.
$35,000 for a 250cc V-twin two-stroke racing machine, something that you can race in the World Championships, or you can race them at Mallala this weekend, but Pucker thoroughbred racing machines.
Let's have a look at the front row. Connell, Crocker, Payton and Watts. These are the four main contenders we've seen battling it out all season.
We just tried setting up the bike right yesterday. I was sort of half a second behind Craig Connell. He was going pretty quick, and I thought I'd just pull into the pitch and think about everything, and made a few adjustments, went back out, and last lap proved to be the lap who got pole.
Now, Wanneroo, race prior to this one, you managed to knock him off, so what's the plan here?
Mate, he's getting a bit closer to the championship, so, you know, I don't want to do anything silly. I just want to stay on the bike, gather points, and then hopefully be the showdown at Phillip Island.
Well, for Rip Crocker, he's got the showdown here at Mallala to get past first. On screen, Craig Connell, bike one, the defending champion, the Australian 250 Grand Prix champion. In the starter's hands, let's see who gets away cleanly. Looks like the front row have all gotten away cleanly. Alan Watts has fired into the lead, bike three, so he looks strong. Along for the ride has come Atlee as well, so it seems to me that all of the front row gotten away well, as did Atlee from the second row. So everyone's through fairly smoothly. Now, the 250 Grand Prix bikes aren't deadly on cold tyres. We'll just have to wait and see who manages to make the most of the situation for the first half or maybe first lap. That is Alan Watts from Western Australia, bike three. Ken Wooden, he has come a long way in the last 6 months.
Yeah, Alan Watts has always been a very consistent rider, but now he's regularly running right up with the front runners. What you were saying before, Greg, about cold tyres. All these guys use tyre warmers to get their tyres up to temperature, and quite often it's the guy who can really make the break on the opening lap that can set up the pattern for the race.
Yes, I suppose it does come down to taking risks. Oh, speaking of risk, Watts has almost taken Connell with him as well. So there you go, talking about risks, and that's exactly what can happen. But it is Rip Crocker who's managed to make advantage of this one. Marty Atlee up there as well into third place. I can't believe that Alan Watts has stayed on the bike and is actually still in the game in second place. It hurt Connell, that's moved him back 2 spots, but Rip Crocker now in the lead, bike 51. Gee, it's a good-looking piece of gear into the bargain. He should be able to do something with this. Connell up the inside of Atlee. Wow, you wouldn't have thought there was room for that, but that's exactly what he's done. I don't think Atlee, here on the replay, would have thought that was going to happen to him either. In fact, Atlee there having to open the corner out just a little bit. Here's Connell, passed on Watts. So Connell now up into second place on the chase now. He wants Rip Crocker, and he's in a hurry for it.
Fourth place to second in the space of 2 corners. He can see Crocker getting away up ahead. Remember, Crocker is riding Connell's bike from last year, the bike that won the championship in '94. Connell on a brand new Yamaha, one that he purchased at the start of this year. It's running a race kit, special high performance parts that he was able to get from Japan. But of course, getting those tuned in to the various circuits, it's a lot more of a finicky machine than the one that Crocker's riding.
Yes, I suppose Crocker does have the advantage insofar as the machine is already set up for him. Alan Watts on screen riding one of the Hondas. Now, interestingly, the Hondas, well, at least a couple of years ago, were traditionally faster than the Yamahas. It seems now if you're on a Yamaha, you've got the top speed, but the Hondas, they also handle. So you've got the good and the bad almost out there. Well, that's Craig Connell, bike one, the defending Australian champion. And he really does know what it takes to do the job, to win the Australian Championship, how not to fold under pressure. Rip Crocker, he's under a lot of pressure, and that's Craig Connell closing in on him. So Rip Crocker about to hear and feel a very determined Craig Connell who wants to get to the lead of this race. Marcus Payton there, bike 4 coming up into play as well. So this is Crocker and Connell battling it out through this fast right-hander at the far side. Connell up the inside. That is a clinical move from him. Straight up the inside he's gone. So not a lot that Crocker could have done about that. And that's what it's all about. Let's see it again on the Shell replay. Connell dead straight. Straight as an arrow into the corner. Just late on the brakes and turns it in. And Crocker now sitting back in second place.
It's hard to imagine the commitment that it takes to bring off a move like that, leaving you braking perhaps 1 or 2 metres later than usual. Are you going to spear off the track? Are you going to be able to get into that little gap that your opponent has left? Connell now opening the gap on Crocker. Rip Crocker was the rider that brought Craig Connell's... He's off the track. This is amazing racing. The commitment from Crocker, obviously trying very hard to stick with Connell there. Ran a little wide coming out of the corner over the ripple strip. He was able to get it back under control, back on the circuit without even losing a place.
Yes, a good piece of motorcycling control there. There's no doubt that he may have practiced that before dirt tracking, but not road racing. Peyton on screen chasing down Alan Watts. Watts from Western Australia has put in an awful lot of kilometres testing and running all of the Eastern State races. Here comes Peyton up the inside, looks pretty strong for it as well. Watts tries to turn in, couldn't do anything with it. So Marcus Peyton now moves himself forward another spot. Here you can see it again on the Shell replay. Peyton just nicked up the inside and Alan Watts just couldn't do anything about it. Well, the battle for second place now is starting to hot up because you've got Rip Crocker, Marcus Peyton and Alan Watts all vying for that all-important points that are available at the end of the race. So it is Connell, Crocker, Peyton, the top three, but don't discount Alan Watts sitting back there in fourth or Marty Atley back in fifth place. And Peyton looks, wow, wild. It's a good way of putting it on a motorcycle. Climbs right off the side of the machine. Really does use the weight. Let's have a look at him here in slow motion. Just look at the action of this man. Total commitment through a corner. And you're going to be hard-pressed to beat that style. Well, Connell has something, and he's beating that style right at the moment. He's got a fast bike, and he's on a mission.
Connell's the man that won 15 successive races in the Shell Oil Series last year and at the start of this year. His winning run coming to an end by Rip Crocker. The man he sold his motorcycle to was the first man to beat Connell and bring that winning sequence to a stop. The unfortunate thing for Crocker is that he's got to finish ahead of Connell to claim the Australian title. If not in this race, then in the remaining one either here at Mallala this weekend or at Phillip Island. Connell knows that he has to win every race from here on in to give himself a shot at retaining his Australian championship. As he comes through to start the final lap, Connell leading the way, Crocker back in second, but we don't only have a race for the championship, Greg. The top four in this class will go through to receive a wildcard ride in next year's Australian Grand Prix.
And as far as they're concerned, I mean, that is of paramount importance to try and structure stuff in front of all the international teams. At the end of the season, for the first time here in Australia, we'll be running the last race at Eastern Creek. That means that all of the teams may still very well be looking for a rider or two. Craig Connell has made it well known that he wants to ride in the World 250 Road Racing Championship, and he certainly earns my points as far as that goes. Let's have a look at this situation from the first lap. This is Alan Watts getting absolutely out of shape. The rear end has stepped out. He's gotten it back together. Connell has just run up onto the back of his bike and touched it. Well, both of them have managed to stay upright. I'm not sure exactly how. Atley sneaks through, says, I'll take that. But it is Craig Connell now on his final lap, heading for the checkered flag. He has broken the spirit of all of those behind him, has stuck it out, and has put in a truly brilliant ride. This is what it's all about. This is what you expect from the reigning national champion. Connell gets across the line. Here comes Rip Crocker, a second place for him, and Marcus Peyton grabs third place. This is race one, round 5, here at Mallala for the Shell Oils Australian Road Racing Championship. Point score-wise, let's take a look, and you'll see that Rip Crocker is still in control. Connell closing all the while. Peyton, Watts, Atley, and Wiggs. So things hotting up right at the front of the field. Don't discount Marcus Peyton either. Looking forward now to the next race, the Superbikes. Well, you can't beat the guys on these machines for excitement. If you want to try and make your way into the World Road Racing Championship, this is the class. One man who has succeeded is Daryl Beattie.
You know, the Shell Oils have been behind the series for a long time. It's a good series. It's a series I rode in when I rode in Australia, and the Superbike series is you know, it's a premier class in Australia, and it's it's good for, you know, all the guys there. They get to, you know, ride in the top class, and at the end of the season, and normally a World Superbike race in Australia, which you know, lets those guys compare their ability and how they're running against the guys that are running in the World Superbikes.
Welcome back. We're getting set for a start with the Superbikes. Looks to me as if the crowd's getting set for a start with the Superbikes. And for the riders, Ken, this time, well, you've just got to sort of settle into it, haven't you? You can't afford to get too excited. You've just got to stay calm.
These guys are very, very focused. Kirk McCarthy, Matt Mallala, Sean Giles, Jason McEwen making up the front row of the grid. A battle for the championship in two, really. McCarthy and Giles. Mallala a little far back in the points, but determined to finish off the season on a winning note.
Well, he certainly seems to be going okay recently. We'll wait and see how it works out for him here at Mallala. But the start for the Superbikes, we always say the start's important. When you see how close the S's are, these guys will be flying by the time they arrive. And McEwen's got the thing airborne. It is Mallala into the corner first. Gee, they're close, there's no doubt about that, but everyone seems to have gotten through. That is the Fiver Flash machine. Benny Archibald, bike 69, working over some of the factory riders. And gee, hasn't he been going strongly throughout the season? Kirk McCarthy, though, man on screen, bike 6, gee, he is super strong, very spectacular to watch. Ken, how about the Ducatis? I'd have thought they would be a lot more competitive here at Mallala.
Well, I know Sean Giles has got the benefit of some camshafts from the factory Ducati engine. After the World Superbikes at Phillip Island, the Ducati team left an engine behind for the local guys to use. Giles has managed to get the camshafts out of that. Of course, camshafts in a Ducati don't compare to a $250,000 factory Honda that he's got breathing up. Going through underneath Kirk McCarthy on the Honda we were talking about. A factory machine, the one ridden by Simon Crafer, as he now gives chase to Mallala. Mallala getting the starts that we remember so well back from 1992 when he dominated Australian Superbike racing.
Oh, wasn't he invincible as far as race starts went? I saw many of them where I thought that this is not possible. Sure enough, Mallala managed to just get on with the job. Well, the field streams through these S's. Now, if we thought the racing's tough for the smaller classes, imagine how hard it is trying to pull up a Superbike down into these hairpins. On this particular corner, they go back 3 gears and then another gear just at the apex of the corner. The Superbikes are too fast to make it through this corner. The right-hander flat out in top gear. They roll the throttle off, but the Ducatis are weapon fast through there. They seem very suited. Matthew Mallala on screen, McCarthy in behind him. Then it's Sean Giles. Now, each of these guys coming from a big dirt racing background, and when you consider the size of the motorcycles, the horsepower of the motorcycles, let's have a look at this. McCarthy on screen showing the style that's necessary to get a motorcycle very quickly through a set of S's, and it's a lot quicker when you do it on just one wheel.
What's interesting too is that the three bikes at the front of the pack, the Kawasaki, the Honda and the Ducati, all different in their configuration. The Ducati, a fuel-injected V-twin of 955 cc's. Matt Mallala's Kawasaki, 4 cylinders across the frame with carburettors, and Kirk McCarthy's Honda, a V4, also fuel-injected like the Ducati, but around this circuit, all evenly matched, only tenths of a second between them as we look at Benny Archibald and Robbie Baird, a Honda and a Kawasaki fighting it out. These two have been locked together like this every round this year. I think Ben Archibald, he'll just be glad that he's out there after what happened to him in qualifying.
Yes, an amazing situation. It's not often you explode a front disc and then manage to pull the bike up without crashing, come back into the pits, change the wheel, which had the discs already set up on it, go back out, then set your fastest qualifying time. Simply phenomenal performance from him. And there's McCarthy's style one more time as he comes through the S's, lifts the front wheel, then manages to tip it over, and making use of simply the preceding force of the wheels. It just works so well on motorcycles. And you can see here Matthew Mallala's style. You know, this guy did not make it to the world 500cc road racing scene because he doesn't know how to set up a motorcycle or that he's not prepared to put his heart into it. And for him, it's very much a matter of trying to get a ride back in the world scene.
Well, Matt Mallala, of course, heading to the United States in 1996 to ride for the factory-backed Yoshimura Suzuki team. Kirk McCarthy on screen. Lots of rumours about where he's going. Possibility of riding for Suzuki in the World Championships. Sean Giles also hoping to head overseas in 1996. McCarthy, the shot we saw before of the Honda wheel standing out of one of the hairpin turns here. These bikes all putting out somewhere in excess of 160 horsepower at the crankshaft, somewhere round about 140, 135 horsepower at the rear wheel. That would be like having an engine in your family Commodore or Falcon, 7 times bigger than the one that's in there now. Can you imagine that, and trying to get that power to the ground through a patch of rubber no bigger than your hand?
You know, I think you're right there with the size of the tyres. I think really that all the different configurations of the motorcycles ultimately come down to that the tyres can only take so much, and it's a matter of what you can do to use your tyres. Now, as we watch the battle between the Honda and the Ducati, we've seen this many, many times before. The Ducati seems to do it more easily, but if you look at the style of McCarthy, wow, this guy loves getting out and boogieing. He loves having the rear end just sliding around, and wheel spin seems to be the master of it on the short tracks here in Australia. It seems also that the factory teams, they simply go on a shopping trip throughout Australia and pick off our best talent, take them overseas, and hopefully develop them into world champions. Well, that is Ben Archibald. Gee, that is bad luck indeed. Walking back, obviously a major problem there that has seen him without a motorcycle. It's always a long walk back to the pits.
You're talking about McCarthy and his tendency to spin up the rear tyre. Some of the world teams and the riders that attended that recent World Championship round at Phillip Island, even somebody like Aaron Slight said he has never seen anybody get a bike as far out of line as Kirk McCarthy. As we look now at the number 6 Honda coming out of the hairpin, flicking left round the big sweeper. There he goes. Look at that rear tyre working hard. In fact, one of the tyre technicians in the pits, both Matt Mallala and Kirk McCarthy running Dunlop tyres, said that McCarthy's tyre runs 14 degrees hotter than the exact same tyre that Mallala uses. Now we look at Mallala coming through the S's at his style. Very smooth, trying to nurse the Kawasaki out of the turns. It's a bike that's very difficult to get set up. We see Mallala wrestling the bike now, and to think that McCarthy actually works the rear tyre harder than Mallala, nobody would have suggested that a couple of years ago.
No, it's interesting styles from the riders. It's the way they set their bikes up, but it's also the way that they enjoy riding. It's funny enough that it's hard to imagine, I suppose, that you consider that they're out there actually having fun, enjoying what they do. And for McCarthy, here he is. This is McCarthy on screen. And this guy really does get it on as he gets out of the corner, opens the throttle and just drives the bike sideways. Pretty frustrating if you're the man sitting in behind him watching all of this action. You've got enough problems, but here's McCarthy or Robbie Bed. Both of the Hondas seem to do it with great flair, and that slide them out of the corners. Well, the battle continues a little further afield as well. That's Jason McEwen, bike 22, on the second of the Team Ducati machines. He's been battling with Martin Craggle, and we've got the Ducatis a little further afield as well, so we've got them all over the place at the moment. You've got McCarthy, though, really on the charge. And as I said, the Ducatis just don't seem to have found the speed here at Mallala. It'll be interesting to see how they go at Phillip Island in just a fortnight's time. McCarthy, though, working the bike. You can see him on the bike being flung around as well. So it gives you an idea as to how hard he's getting his knee into the tarmac. He really does get down and use the knee sliders, and that makes a huge difference to your ability to steer the motorcycle into the corners.
One of the things McCarthy is more than happy about this weekend is the birthday present that Honda has given him. McCarthy turns 27 today, pole position on Saturday in qualifying was a little preamble as he once again gets that rear end right out of line around the corner. The birthday present I'm talking about, of course, is the factory Honda. It's on loan from Honda Racing Corporation in Japan. It's to assist McCarthy in his quest to win the Australian Championship this year. The bike is valued at round about $250,000 as we look at Marty Craggle and Jason McEwen, the second Kawasaki and the second Ducati. But it's very frustrating for Sean Giles, who is being forced to follow this Honda. The Ducati, traditionally a more gruntier, easier bike to get out of the turns than the Honda. And now, of course, he's up against a Honda that's got more mid-range power. The twin pipes making it pull out of the corners far better than the previous single pipe Honda that McCarthy has had for the rest of this series. We've got Sean Giles now riding very hard, tucking in low behind the screen as he heads up the back straight around this very fast right-hand sweeper, trying to close in on the factory Honda of McCarthy.
Well, the weather has been playing havoc with some of the setups as well. The wind has been blowing fairly strongly, and it actually sort of gusts as they come around the back part of the circuit. I've noticed that some of the riders really having to work left and right on the motorcycle just to control the air. Again, McCarthy power slides his way out of that right-hander, out of the left-hander into the right-hander. That is amazing performance in the middle of a race, just settling in and just power sliding your way around the racetrack. Craggle and McEwen going at it, the two of the second riders. Well, It's hard to say who's a lead rider in a team these days. Everybody seems to be on the pace. As we watch the Ducati of Sean Giles trying to make some ground on Kirk McCarthy. It's just not working for him at the moment. McCarthy head down and keeping up the pace. That's what it's all about. They're on their final lap.
I think it also reflects the fact that the Australian Superbike Championship, the Shell Oil Series that sponsored this title ever since 1989, how seriously all the teams and the riders value a win. Honda able to obtain this factory bike. There were rumours that the Ducati team had actually bought Troy Corse's factory Ducatis, all to no avail though, because the bike out in front, the ZXR 750 of Matt Mallala, developed locally in Sydney, and it looks like it's on its way to the checkered flag.
Well, it certainly does as McCarthy turns it on again. The crowd going berserk. Gee, they love these Superbikes. They love the riders into the bargain. And it is Matthew Mallala, Team Kawasaki Australia. How hard is he working on the final lap, a few corners from home, and still prepared to get the thing out sideways? Has a look behind, says thank you very much, sits up, acknowledges the flag, and takes the win. Mallala ahead of McCarthy, Sean Giles grabbing third place. Race 1, round 5 here at Mallala. We've still got the second race to go, and the action continues to hot up here at Mallala. Well, Matthew Mallala pretty pleased with himself. Let's check out the points. By virtue of his second place in that race ahead of Sean Giles, McCarthy piles on 2 more points. Ahead of Sean Giles, Matthew Mallala and Robbie Baird. Well, plenty more headed your way. Next up, the three-wheelers. Yes, the sidecars. Well, time now for a slight change of angle. No change of pace and no change of action. The sidecars. Well, these guys do it tough. This has got to be tough racing, there's no doubt about that. That is Peter Guest on screen, an ex-Superbike racer, in fact, coming from pole position. His passenger, Scott Deslanders, Trelaw and Hogan, Shane Sutar and Dave Kellett, the top 3. Andre Bosman, a non-starter, problems with the machine. Now, these are interesting pieces of equipment. As we wait for the start, let's see who gets away. 2 strokes and 4 strokes racing against each other. Peter Guest, bike 51, gets into the corner first. Ken Wooten, this is an interesting form of motor racing.
Very interesting if you're the passenger. At least if you're the rider, you've got things under control. But that poor passenger hanging off the side, they're totally in the hands of the guy at the controls. And it's not easy holding on to these things. As Shane Sutar gets a little sideways, he's been having a lot of trouble with rear-wheel drive. The rear tyre hasn't been hooking up on the #1 machine. It runs a Kawasaki ZZR 1100 engine, bored out, hotted up, got something like 170 horsepower. Very hard to stop, very hard to turn, but it's Peter Guest, similar engine in his bike, but notice the difference in the size. He's got the short wheelbase machine, Shane Sutar on the longer European style bike.
Yes, you'd have to say that Peter Guest, the man out in front at the moment, surely has the right machine here at Mallala. It is a tough circuit. Now, one thing that's a fallacy amongst the people who have not really been that close to sidecar racing is you would assume they'd be easier to turn through left-hand corners. Not the case. It's much easier to get the sidecar wheel off the ground and two-wheel your way around the racetrack. Now, here's a good example of it. How would you be hanging off the side of this machine just hoping that it's all going to go your way? And it is total commitment from the passenger. Not only does the passenger have to control traction, but also the cornering force. He has to compensate and try and keep his weight low under brakes, and that really is the tough part. Try not to move around nor get flung over the front of the machine. And you can see here that there's all differing types of sidecars. There's the European machines, and they virtually are 3-wheeled racing cars.
What Shane Sutar is on there is bike #1 is an LCR, a Louis Christen racing machine. It's made out of an alloy monocoque chassis. It's very high tech, inboard brakes, inboard suspension, a lot of technology. but the homegrown machine of Peter Guest, Bike 51, built in Adelaide by Gavin Porteous, ex-sidecar champion, holding off the more exotic LCR. Interesting combination here. Peter Guest, an ex-Superbike rider, Shane Suter, an ex-Speedway sidecar rider, both of them fighting out this race. Shane Suter, twice Australian road racing champion, as he goes around the outside of Peter Guest. That's the long way around, and he's done it.
Well, his passenger had a lot of faith in that one, because all Peter Guest would have seen of that machine was basically the passenger, and really that is just taking the hard line and working hard. You can see there they've got it sideways as they try and come out of the corner. Better than two G-forces on some of these machines. Have a look at this for commitment, and right round the outside, Peter Guest wondering, gee, that's a pretty good move. I wouldn't mind trying that one myself later. But better than two G-forces laying on the passenger as he tries to get side to side on the machine. Really, the only chance you've got to get from one side of the bike to the other is in the neutral transition. In other words, when you're in the middle of a set of S's where there's that split second where there's no force on you, where the bike's going from either right to left or vice versa, that's the time to try and scramble across the platform and do your thing and hang off the other side and hope that you don't miss the grab rail.
Both these guys have been desperately trying to get me to go for a ride with them to do a story on their outfits, and I can assure you, Greg, that's the last thing on my wish list at the moment as we look at Peter Guest. Back further in the pack, we've got Mark Schuppan and Neville Richter. Neville Richter on bike 2, Mark Schuppan on bike 18. These guys fighting further down the field for the minor placings. We seem to have lost Darren Treloar. Treloar, of course, the reigning Australian Speedway sidecar champion, so a real mix. But back to Richter and Schuppan having a great dice here as we see the replay, the Shell replay, as they come around the left-hander, fighting to keep that wheel on the ground. Both these machines, the shorter wheelbase, traditional Australian sidecar that's well suited to the shorter circuits we have here.
Well, the competitors not only have to put up with the usual problems of a race meeting, and that is all the pressures and all of the lack of time to try and set your machine up, but these things have three wheels, so that the passenger's wheel, in fact, can be adjusted forward and aft. It can also be adjusted for caster, camber, tow. There's a mile of things that come into play, and then on top of that, you've got to come to grips with learning the circuit, the right gear ratios. These are very busy teams. And you can see here the commitment from the passengers. All off to one side, then immediately climb straight across the platform and try and look for traction. So the passenger's job is a multitasking job out there at any one time, trying to keep out of the wind, find traction, help steer the machine. And the driver, of course, has implicit faith in the passenger to do the right thing. And you can't win a race unless there's the two of you on the machine. It's happened many times where you've lost a passenger. Let's have a look at this on the replay again. That transition period through the S's is the only time the passenger has to scramble across the platform and get in position for when the throttle's open, leaving the corner again.
A lot more work for the passenger on those shorter wheelbase machines as we look again at Shane Suter. He, of course, is shooting for title number 3. He's won the last 2 Shell Oil's Australian Sidecar Championships. This year he's going for his 3rd in succession. We're looking now at Neville Richter on bike number 2, runner-up in last year's title. But Shane Suter missed the last round of this series in Perth. He was in Europe racing at the Catalonian GP in Spain, the last GP of the year. Finished 14th, grabbed 2 championship points, and hopeful that his competitors wouldn't pick up enough points to knock him from the lead in this, his 3rd Australian Championship assault. It looks like he's now back on target. He's got Peter Guest close behind, but bike number 1, Shane Suter, looking for title number 3 to add to his 1990 Australian Speedway Sidecar Championship.
Well, he certainly has a strong package on board. Peter Guest has done everything he possibly can to try and catch up. You know, the interesting thing is that having come from the Superbikes, Peter Guest is racing at the same race meetings that he was as a solo rider. He tells me that the majority of the competitors, when he first went sidecar racing, just said, this is ridiculous, why would you do this, stay with the solos? Now they're super interested. They're forever walking over to the sidecar camp just to see what's going on, finding out how it's all happening. I think you'll find that there'll be a few more solo riders making the transition into the sidecars, maybe just for a bit of change of pace. Well, our leader, Shane Suter, on screen. What a run from him as he heads for the flag. A big win, a big run, and this has been a very tidy race for him. Gets the checker flag. Peter Guest comes along, picking up second place, has virtually sat back there for the entire race, and really has provided the spectators with some great action. The spectators really do get in behind the sidecars. Sutar and Kellett, Guest and Deslander, Richter and Edwards. Round 1, race 5 here in the Sidecar Championship. And you can see point score-wise, Shane Sutar and Kellett on 142, not that far ahead of Peter Guest and Scott Deslanders. Trelaw and Hogan back in third. Well, now it's time for the 600 Supersport class. Definitely one of the favourites with the competitors, and this is a tough class to work your way anywhere, possibly up into the top 10. Paul Young, the local, will come from pole position. Beside him, Dean Thomas, Greg Moss from 3, and Graham Morris, the reigning 600 Supersport champion, out of grid position 4.
Paul Young, the 1994 Australian 250 production champ, he's on pole position. He stepped up to this class at the end of last year as they're in the starters' hands, ready to go.
Let's see who grabs the start. Dean Thomas has gotten away nicely on bike 3, and his teammate bike 1's not had it all his own way, back in about 5th, 6th spot. So it is pretty tough out there as they settle themselves in. That is Malcolm Campbell right in behind there on bike 30, and 2 times Australian Superbike champion, now enjoying his racing in the 600 Supersport class. I saw Troy Bayliss up there as well, so he was looking strong. This is Paul Young, and boy, what a charger. He is under brakes. He will get to shine here at Mallala, there's no doubt about that.
The bike's tucked in behind there. Bike 32, the Kawasaki ZX6R of Troy Bayliss, and bike number 3, the Maxima Honda CBR 600 of Dean Thomas. Bayliss and Thomas currently running 1st and 2nd in the championship point score. Paul Young, the pole sitter at this meeting, the first time in 600 class racing this year. He won the 250 Prody Championship last year. It seems to be a race between these 3. Graham Morris a little bit behind them at the moment. They seem to be making a break. Paul Young, very smooth on the Kawasaki. He said the quickest way around this circuit, you've got to keep it smooth, you've got to go for consistent lap times, but he feels he's at a disadvantage. He said the Kawasaki gearbox has a bigger spacing between 2nd and 3rd gear. The Honda is better suited to Mallala, so Paul Young's going to have to make up for it with some very talented riding.
Well, spirited riding seems to be his forte, and under brakes he's just so strong. Troy Bayliss there, bike 32, and he has been putting in some very strong rides as well. This is a young man's sport, but don't tell Graham Morris or Malcolm Campbell that. Both of these guys are very, very experienced, have been running a long time. Look at this battle going on here as Thomas tries up the inside here on Bayliss. Can he do it? Yes, gets up the inside. Great piece of tactical riding there. And again, the 600 Supersports most of the time can make it through the big sweeper on the far side, flat out in top gear. And that really does take some setup and commitment from the riders. And you can see here, Paul Young has really broken the field. Thomas back in 2nd place, back to Bayliss then in 3rd. And in 600 Supersport racing so early in a race, this is a pretty decent lead.
It's not only a race for honours in this particular event, it's a race for the championship. Thomas and Bayliss, as I said earlier, running 1st and 2nd. Bayliss leading at the moment. He needs to keep Thomas in sight. He is riding under a little bit of an injury cloud. He cut a plaster cast off his wrist only 2 days before the meeting so that he could go out and get some points. He's been having acupuncture on that wrist. He says it's strong enough, but he's looking for points rather than the race win. If he can stay where he is and keep Dean Thomas in sight, he'll maintain the lead in the championship. But we've got Paul Young on a Kawasaki, 2nd place Thomas on the Honda, then Bayliss on the Kawasaki, then it looks like Graham Morris coming into picture on another of the Hondas. Very close racing. All these bikes based on $11,500 production machines with limited modifications.
Yes, there is very few things that can actually be done to the motorcycle, but similar to the 250 production. Oh, there goes Morris up the inside of Bayliss. So Graham Morris moves himself another spot forward. The modification's fairly limited. Morris there, power sliding his way. Gee, I tell you what, that looked pretty strong from where we could see it. I bet you it looked a lot bigger from where he was watching it. And the modifications really are limited to just setting the motorcycle up. Tyre selection does come into play. The Dunlop seeming to be the dominant brand, but Dunlop themselves have had some real problems after the Kobe disaster. That was where all the race tyres for the Asia area was produced, especially for Australia, not only in bike racing, but car racing as well. A lot of the equipment was taken overseas, and it has not been exactly copied, the technology and the tyre compound. So a lot of the riders trying to look for older tyres and revert back to something that they were comfortable with. Teammates now battle out the 600 Supersport race here at Mallala.
It's more than just a battle in the race too, Greg. Dean Thomas in line for one of the Superbike rides in Australia next year, as is Paul Young leading this race, and Troy Bayliss tucked in behind. Poor old Graham Morris, he's an old man of the class. He's in his early 30s, so he's not seen as a threat to these young chargers. But Graham Morris, the lap record holder in the 600 class at this circuit last year, out to close the gap to Paul Young. He seems to be the rider on the charge as he comes up on Thomas, up the inside, hard under brakes. That is a big move, left it really late, tucks in, manages to hold Thomas out, and he's now off after Paul Young. Not long to go. Whether he can close the gap will depend a lot on how he's looked after his tyres early in the race, but Morris probably one of the smoothest riders in the class.
Yeah, it's probably easier on his equipment than virtually anybody else out there, and that comes from experience. He's been riding this class for a long time, and Benno, his mechanic, has put a lot of effort into making the bike rideable. Well, that's your leader, Paul Young, on his final lap, and gee, it's been a pretty good weekend for him so far. He'd be pretty happy with the way it's all come together. But the 600 Supersport class is an international class. You get to put your best foot forward on equipment that you could ride anywhere in the US, up into Europe as well. Here we have the replay. Now have a look at the commitment here from Graham Morris. Speedways the machine in, the back steps out, and Dean Thomas did not have a corner to turn into, simply forced back into third place. The man who has had it right from the start has been this guy on screen, Paul Young, doing a tremendous job, keeping it smooth, keeping it fast, and not making errors under pressure. The local, so he's pretty keen to put his best foot forward. He's got a lot of friends here, and that's exactly what he's done. He's taken the win. A great run there from him. He's super pleased with that. Here comes Graham Morris. That's a hard-fought second place. He certainly has earned the points from that one. And his teammate, Dean Thomas, grabbing third place. That's race 2, round 5 of the 600 Supersport Championship, the Australian Championship. Let's check out the point score and just see how it's panning out with only a couple of races to go. Thomas on 159 ahead of Bayliss, Paul Young, Damon Buckmaster, Graham Morris and Malcolm Campbell. Well, we've got plenty more action headed your way. In fact, the Superbikes, race 2 here at Mallala. Stay with us. Welcome back as we get set for a start in race 2 here at Mallala for the Australian Superbike Championship. All the riders just settling themselves in. You can see the team crew's still out on the circuit. And for the riders, this is a very important time. McCarthy from pole, beside him Mallala, Giles and McEwen, the front row. Well, Matthew Mallala is headed overseas again for an international start.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's a ride with the Suzuki factory team in America. Fred Merkel retired after a reasonably bad accident in the last race over there, who was riding for Suzuki this year, and they offered me the ride, and unfortunately, you know, I had a couple other things on the go for World Championship, but nobody was really able to commit themselves at the time, and I really couldn't let this deal go past. It's quite a good deal. Factory equipment, the good Dunlop tyres, same sort of tyres we've been using here this year, and I feel it's a good step to get back into international racing without the pressure of World Championship.
Ken Wootton, my co-commentator, editor of Australian Motorcycle News. Ken, it's great to see Matthew getting back out there and making inroads into international competition again.
Well, not only Matt Mallala, but good chance of Kirk McCarthy joining him as they head off. Look at that first corner. Giles and Mallala, they've gone out wide, both after the same piece of bitumen. Mallala, can he get back on? That's close, just back on as he gives chase.
There's a bit of a look behind and says, what happened there? Well, McCarthy's pulled the pin. He says, thank you very much, and roars off into the lead. Robbie Baird, his teammate, in behind him. Gee, wasn't that close. Here's Mallala again, as he's just come back onto the track, has a bit of a look behind. I'd say he was looking to see where Sean Giles was, but we'll have to ask him after the race. What what a start. I mean, everybody just wanted the same piece of tarmac, Kenneth. They don't all fit.
Well, you don't often see that, but I would suggest that perhaps all these riders are so fired up, so focused. McCarthy, in some ways, lucky that he missed that action, but he's now got free track in front of him, desperately trying to make a break. He's got his teammate Robbie Baird in there in second place, acting as a buffer. Benny Archibald, the privateer, in third. Then Marty Craggle on the Kawasaki. Jason McEwen on the Ducati. Where's Matt Mallala? There he is, tucking in behind McEwen now, but he's a long way behind McCarthy.
Yes, I think he's got his work cut out for him, and it is Robbie Baird riding shotgun for him at the moment. But how about this on the Fiber Flash Kawasaki? Benny Archibald really has managed to put a great season together, and that is a strong performance from him. There's a lot of factory riders behind him right at the moment. That is Martin Craggle, bike 2, and his team Kawasaki machine. It's got plenty of pace, but just watch the style of this man out in front. Bike 6, Kirk McCarthy. And as for style, the man in behind him, Robbie Baird, the power sliding king here at Mallala, really does get the thing sideways. Now, Craggle about to feel the hot exhaust of his teammate as he tries to get up the inside. McCarthy looks strong, and you can see here now that Ben Archibald has been shuffled back a couple of spots. Wasn't too much he could do about that.
But it's Matt Mallala, the one that's on the charge from that terrible start where he and Sean Giles speared off the track. He's coming up beside Archibald. He's through. He's on Craggle round the outside. That's an amazing move. Can he hold it? In behind Robbie Baird. Matt Mallala is riding like a man possessed. Whether his tyres are going to go the full 23-lap distance at this pace, we can only guess, but he's already up to third. He's got Robbie Baird in his sights. If he can get past the Honda, he's got clear track between himself and McCarthy. Mallala not happy to be knocked off pole position, believed he put in a faster time than McCarthy during Saturday's qualifying. Not impressed. He won't be impressed with what happened at the start. He's now on Baird's tail. He's got to get past, so he's got clear track between him and Kirk McCarthy.
Well, he's certainly working hard for it. There's no doubt about that. And Robbie Baird's putting in a strong ride, sitting back in second place. Can he hold off Matthew Mallala? No, he can't. Matthew Mallala. Let's have a look at this replay here. Mallala goes round the outside of Martin Craggle and simply forces Craggle to run, well, almost wide. It's an amazing ride there, and you wouldn't have thought that's possible. Well, the battle continues. That was Craggle and Baird going at it, and Matthew Mallala on the charge and really starting to put in some decent times while he's trying to pull back that lead of Kirk McCarthy. Now here really is Kirk McCarthy's chance. He can look after the tyres, take it a little bit easier out there, and just try to have the machine in shape, given that he has to battle with Mallala a little later on in the race. Right at the moment, though, everybody just putting in 10 tenths out there. This is a fantastic race. The crowd, well, this is what they've come to see. They paid their money. They should be getting pretty well decent value for that money right at this point in the race. There is McCarthy, well and truly committed as he comes out of the corners. And this machine that he's riding, Ken, is an absolute beauty.
It's a factory machine left over after the World Superbike round at Phillip Island. It's one of Simon Crafer's machines, both the factory Honda RC45s left behind for McCarthy to use to try to clinch this Shell Oils Australian Championship. The value, roughly $250,000 per machine. They're on loan to the Honda team in Australia. Mallala tucked in behind on the Kawasaki ZXR, built and developed in Sydney by Peter Doyle, the Kawasaki team, the most powerful bike out there in the field. It's got something like 147 horsepower at the rear wheel. It's 10 horsepower more than the factory Honda in front of it. The advantage McCarthy's got is that the Honda pulls out of corners a lot better than the Kawasaki. It drives harder under acceleration, even as good as Sean Giles' Ducati. Now, whether he can hold off Mallala's done a fantastic job to come through and be on the rear wheel of McCarthy, but has he overcooked his tyres?
Well, they're on their last lap. We'll know soon enough. You know, the interesting thing is that when Mallala is determined like this, he is virtually unstoppable. It just does not matter who's in front or by what gap. And that's exactly what he's doing here. The crowd on their feet. This is electric. What a battle it has been. They're on their last lap. Now, what can Mallala do? McCarthy, remember, has been on the pace. McCarthy's run wide. Mallala up the inside. Oh, this is not going to plan for McCarthy. There's a touch as well. So McCarthy's gotten back into the lead after giving it away. Now Mallala across the front of him. McCarthy ducks to the outside. Oh, this is exciting stuff here. A couple of corners from home. Mallala back up the inside. This is all he needs. Matthew Mallala has ridden himself into the lead with performance. Mallala crosses the line, celebrates with a wheel stand. Wow, what action. Let's catch this on the replay. Compliments of Shell.
That's a mistake by McCarthy. In too deep at the hairpin. He's let it go out wide. Mallala's come through, but McCarthy's got back alongside. Looks to have the race in hand at that point. Somehow Mallala managed to get around him. Mallala now on the slowdown lap. Here we have a look at the replay at the second of those corners, where once again McCarthy's gone out wide. Two mistakes from Kirk. Mallala gets back through.
Well, McCarthy heads the points table after all that action on 155, ahead of Sean Giles and Matthew Mallala. Well, to the victors go the spoils. We trust you've enjoyed all of the action from round 5. At Mallala, we look forward to your company in 2 weeks' time at Phillip Island for the final round of the 1995 Shell Oils Australian Road Racing Championship.